Hi everyone, this is Darren from SimNation doing a quick preview video for SNCFL, which is our Draft Day Sports College Football League here at SimNation. This is the third oldest league we have. The only two leagues that are older than this are WWPF, which is our Draft Day Sports Pro Football League, and WWCF, which is a bowl-bound college football league, which is the oldest league here. Um, Season's about to start. Starts tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Just want to do a quick run through of the excitement around this season. This will be, I think, like our 48th or 49th season, if I remember correctly. So we've had lots of play. We have a great group of coaches. I'll talk a little bit about them as well. But let's just drive through the top 25. UCLA is our preseason number one. This is Stuart's team. Stuart is one of those coaches I was mentioning who's really good. He also has Michigan. He also has Duke. So you can see he has the number one team, number three team, and number nine team. If he still had Western Michigan, he would have the number six. That's normal for Stuart. He does a really good job. He is looking for his first title, though. And in case of Michigan, he's looking to stop Maryland from winning the Big Ten. Um, Maryland, of course, is one of my teams, as is Colorado. Uh, Maryland is probably the powerhouse in the league, although UCLA, prestige-wise, and Georgia, Louisiana Monroe are all up there above the 95 mark, and should be making this competitive. Maryland won the title last year, so they are the defending champion. I don't expect them to win the championship this year. Coming at number four is Shark with his Georgia Bulldogs. He also has Coastal Carolina, who's at number 19. Georgia has a really good squad. I think that they're going to compete for a title this year, along with UCLA. Maybe not so Michigan. It'll be if Michigan gets past Maryland, I think they compete for a title. Coming at number five is Matt in Clemson. Matt is one of the rushing gurus of the league, along with Skelter. I think Clemson's going to make a deep run. They're probably my odds-on favorite for the ACC this year, and they also have a really good quarterback in Noah Donaldson, who doesn't always get the same hype, but he allows Matt to kind of diversify a little bit. Western Michigan is the top open team right now, so if you're interested in joining a league, Western Michigan's a good team to take. I'll mention a couple others throughout the video. Coming in at number 7 and 8 is Skelter's two teams, Louisiana Monroe and Oklahoma State. Matt's won a title at Clemson. Skelter's won a few at Louisiana Monroe. Both of them have something in common that they both are really, really good at running the ball. Oklahoma State and Louisiana Monroe will probably have the running backs that compete for the rushing title this season. Although I suspect Louisiana Monroe will be the one that will be competing for a national title. Uh, Iowa State is another open team if you're interested. This used to be Sharks' team, so they have a lot of talent and a good base. So the Big 12 should be competitive this year. Iowa State should be competing against Oklahoma State and Colorado for it. But just keep them in the back of your mind. Auburn is a visible witness. Uh, he's made the switch over to college. He's been a long time coach in the pro football. And he's got Auburn in a really good position. He kind of got screwed last year in the playoffs with some last minute shenanigans or last second shenanigans, probably a better way of saying it. But I do expect Auburn to compete with Georgia and Louisiana Monroe for the SEC title. And Auburn is one of those teams I think will make a very deep run. He had an exceptional recruiting cycle, so I think that's going to translate into success. Rutgers at number 16 is Kevin. Kevin is another coach. He's my dark horse to win the Big Ten. If Kevin could get all the moons to align, I think he's going to do really good. Louisiana Lafayette is also Invisible Witness. This is his Fun Belt team. And I won't be shocked if Coastal Carolina and Louisiana Lafayette are in the playoffs at the end of the season. Rounding out the humans will be Florida. This is Starfinder. He's dropped his other teams, taking Florida. It's a rebuild year for Florida. I think they'll be a top 25 team. I don't think they're going to compete for an SEC title or playoff berth. And I could be wrong on that. From a CPU, other than the teams I already mentioned, Washington State, Oklahoma, Florida State, Miami, Boise State, and Nebraska are teams that if you want to join our league and get an immediate impact, those are the teams to really take a look at. Let's drive through the conferences real quick and just talk about week one. Um, so I mentioned this. Uh, the ACC really, the Atlantic is, it's going to be Matt. He's the only human in that division. If you want to come in and get an immediate impact, take a look at Florida State, NC State. But I don't really see anybody. None of the CPU is going to compete with Matt in the Atlantic. In the Coastal, it's really between Duke, Miami, and Virginia Tech. Miami is a CPU team. Virginia Tech is Bama. Duke, of course, is Stuart. I see Duke winning this one. It'll be Duke versus Clemson. Uh, I do think that Stuart may get Matt this year, but I think he needs one more year uh, because, again, Donaldson gives Matt some options that he might not have normally had. Week one, the big matchup is Clemson versus Auburn. This is a mega matchup between two of the best coaches in the league with Invisible and Matt. I'm going to say this one's too close to call, mostly just because it is. I don't agree with the line of 3.5. I think this one would be a push. Duke's just going to annihilate Kansas. There's no chance that Kansas beats Duke and Stewart. The irony here is Virginia Tech is coached by Bama, taking on DWK, who coaches Alabama. Uh, in this one, I like Virginia Tech over Alabama. I think DWK is going to get Bama back on track because he's reduced to two teams, and he's now focusing on Bama and Cincinnati. Washington should get by Boston College. Washington's one of my teams that I'm trying to restore and rebuild. It'll be a close game, but I think Washington wins it. Georgia's going to annihilate Miami. If there was a human coach here, I might feel differently, but very few CPU teams ever really mess with Shark at Georgia, so I expect that one to be pretty bad. Florida State should beat Texas Tech. Georgia Tech will beat Florida Atlantic. Texas will beat Louisville. NC State should beat Southern Miss. Pittsburgh will beat Penn State. Syracuse, Tulsa. Tulsa should beat Syracuse. Arizona should knock off Wake Forest. In the AAC, there's only really one team here that is human controlled. That's Cincinnati. The powers in the East are East Carolina, Central Florida, and Cincinnati. I see East Carolina winning this. East Carolina, if you want to take a team in a smaller conference, probably a really good one to take. In the West, it's going to be between Houston and Memphis. I see Houston winning this one, although Memphis is intriguing. Again, if you want to join something like the AAC, Houston and Memphis are two other good options to take. Week one, Cincinnati should beat Miami. Marshall is all smiles. He should beat Tulane. Iowa's Joe Betts. He should beat Temple. I like East Carolina over Western Michigan, West Virginia. Sorry. Houston should beat Ball State. Central Florida should beat Oregon. San Diego State should beat Nevada Navy. Memphis should beat Akron easily, and then Syracuse, of course, is going to lose to Tulsa. Big 12. This used to be one of the heaviest human controlled conferences. Now I think there are only like two humans in this one, and it's me and Skelter. Skelter at Oklahoma State, me at Colorado. Really, the championship game should be Oklahoma State versus Iowa State. If Gary comes back to Oklahoma, I'll change my opinion. I think Oklahoma and Colorado are dark horses, but I really think it's going to be Oklahoma State versus Iowa State, with Oklahoma State winning it. And then it's a matter of seeing how far Skelter can take Oklahoma State. Mentioned Duke's going to beat up on Kansas. Oklahoma State's going to beat up on LSU. Colorado should sneak past North Texas. North Texas is actually a pretty good team. Iowa State will beat up on Vanderbilt. Oklahoma should get by TCU. Florida State should get by Texas Tech. East Carolina will beat West Virginia. Mississippi should beat Baylor. Kansas State will lose to Missouri more than likely. And then I mentioned Texas and Louisville already. Um, by the way, if you want to join our league, this is probably the right conference to join if you want a Power 5. Big Ten wise, the East is stacked with human coaches. You have me at Maryland, Stuart at Michigan, Kevin at Rutgers, Shark is at Ohio State, Indiana is at Bama, If you're looking to have a rebuild project, Penn State's a good team to take. Michigan State is probably a team that can be competitive. If you do want to join the Big Ten, I would recommend the West, though, because the only team in the West is Joe Betts at Iowa. Nebraska is a really good team, so is Wisconsin. And those would be two teams to look at. I think this one's going to be a toss-up. I think Michigan and Rutgers are going to, one of those two teams is going to knock Maryland off its perch this season. Could also be Ohio State. Sharks now had 2 seasons to rebuild them. I think Indiana is going to go to a bowl. I don't think they make the playoffs this season. But I do think that they are going to catch one of the league leaders, just catch them by surprise and knock them off. In the West, I think it's really between Nebraska and Wisconsin. I like Nebraska. They are still riding off the coattails of when Skelter had them. And then it'll be whoever wins the East versus Nebraska, where whoever wins the East will be the one. I do expect Maryland, Michigan, Rutgers to make the playoffs with Ohio State knocking on the door. Week 1, I like Indiana over Notre Dame. Again, Bama's done a really good job of restoring Indiana. Maryland will beat up on Western Michigan. I would have a different opinion if Stuart was still at Western Michigan, but he's not. Ohio State's just going to beat up on Hawaii. Sharks going to show no mercy, though. Same thing with Michigan over Central Michigan. Iowa should beat Temple. Illinois should beat Middle Tennessee, but I think Middle Tennessee is going to upset them. Uh, Nebraska win against Arkansas State. I like Michigan State over Texas A&M. I know the CPU thinks differently. Minnesota should beat Wyoming. I still like Pitt over Penn State. I already mentioned that. Wisconsin should get by Oregon State, and then Purdue will lose to Fresno State. In Conference USA, the only human control team here is Marshall. Marshall is a powerhouse. This is all smiles again. I do like his chance in the East. The main team he'll be competing against is Middle Tennessee State. So I'm just going to say all smiles wins the East. In the West, it's Louisiana Tech and North Texas. I think Louisiana Tech takes it. Louisiana Tech versus Marshall. I like Louisiana Tech over Marshall just because I think they have a deeper roster, but we'll see what all smiles can do though. Georgia Southern should win against James Madison. This was DWK, but he dropped them because he's focusing on the two teams that he has. All smiles is at Northern Illinois. He should beat Texas San Antonio. Marshall should beat Tulane. UCLA's in a throttle FIU. Colorado sneaks by North Texas. California, which is Bama, will get by UTEP. We already mentioned Illinois versus Middle Tennessee. Louisiana Tech will throttle Eastern Michigan. Georgia Tech, we mentioned that one earlier. NC State too. I like Kentucky over Western Kentucky, and then Rice should beat South Alabama. There's a chance I'm going to take Rice as a quiet 0-0 team. Notre Dame should win the FBS Independent. It's not really a conference. I mentioned Indiana should beat Notre Dame. UMass should beat Troy. Air Force versus Army. Army should beat Air Force. Air Force sadly was my Soda Hero team that I didn't do so well last year with, 2 years ago with. Western, pretty much all roads lead through Western Michigan in the Mid-American. Now, Java is a new coach at Toledo. You have all smiles at Northern Illinois, and you have me at Buffalo. I don't know enough about Java to know how good he's going to be in the conference. So I think that if someone wants to end the hegemony that is Western Michigan, it's this season. So I think between All Smiles and Java, they probably will win the West. And then we'll see from there. So I know what All Smiles can do because he coached last season. He also coaches South Dakota State in the GMCFL. I like how he coaches, so I think him and Java will compete against each other. Too close to call. In the East, Kent State is the team to beat. I do think Buffalo has a chance at winning the East, just because of the team that I put together there. So we'll see if I'm right. Cincinnati, we talked about this game. Buffalo should beat Texas State. Georgia State is one of Stuart's teams in the Fun Belt. He'll beat Bowling Green pretty convincingly. We talked about Northern Illinois, Texas San Antonio. Toledo versus Florida is going to be a good game. This is Java versus Starfinder. Don't read into this. I think Florida's still rebuilding. I think Toledo's going to upset Florida. We talked about Maryland's game versus Western Michigan, Michigan versus Central Michigan. And I think the only one we didn't talk about, Kent State should beat Nevada, and then Ohio should beat Arkansas. In the Mountain West, there are no human coaches here, so if you want to join a league, join a conference with no human coaches and build up your rep, this would be a good one. Boise State, Colorado State are the traditional powers in the mountain. I don't think that changes. I like Colorado State over Boise State. In the West, it's traditionally been UNLV and Nevada. I don't see that changing. UNLV should win the West. And then between Colorado State and UNLV, I like Colorado State. One of those two teams will make the playoffs. Week one, we talked about Ohio State versus Hawaii. Ohio State's just going to beat up on Hawaii. App State should get by UNLV. That'll be a tough matchup for App State. Tennessee versus Colorado State. Tennessee's Udo. Colorado State's probably going to win this one. It's just not a good matchup for Udo. Boise State versus Coastal Carolina. If there's a human in charge of Boise State, I'd have a different opinion, but Coastal Carolina is going to play Boise State. We talked about Oklahoma TCU. We talked about Kent State, Nevada. Navy versus San Diego State. I think we talked about that. That I like San Diego State. Um, Utah versus Utah State. I like Utah over Utah State. I don't know what the computer's smoking. New Mexico versus New Mexico State. I actually like New Mexico State in this one. They have a pretty good passing offense. Pac-12 in the north, you have Cal is Bama, Washington is me. Washington State, Cal should compete for the north. I like Cal in this, which in this case is Bama. I don't think Stanford's going to be though. UCLA and USC are the two human controlled teams. UCLA, of course, is Stuart. USC is Van, who's come back after a hiatus. Uh, he's got some work to do with USC. USC kind of fell into disrepair after Brian left. And I don't see USC competing with UCLA this season. UCLA is just too good. But give it a season or two, and I think Van will have USC humming. Van is one of the guys who likes options, so it'll be fun to watch USC this season. Um, week one, we haven't talked about Washington State, Louisiana Monroe. Louisiana Monroe will beat Washington State pretty convincingly. Uh, Pet peeve of mine, I went to high school in South Carolina. South Carolina is not USC, they're SC. So USC will beat SC. South Carolina's a decent team if you want to join the SEC. I had them a few seasons back for 0 to hero, and all they need is a good quarterback, and I think they can actually start to compete. I may pick them back up next season. I haven't decided. We talked about UCLA, Florida International. I think most of these games we talked about. So I'm not just going to rehash them. Southeast SEC, the West is really Louisiana Monroe versus Auburn. DWK, give him a season or two. I think he'll have Alabama back in competition, but really the two juggernauts is Louisiana Monroe and Auburn. I like Invisible Witness this season. I think he had a really good offseason. I'll show you them in a second. So I like him to be able to knock off Louisiana Monroe, but let's be candid, Skelter's going to be right there. I don't see anybody beating Georgia in the East. Florida's in a rebuild, Tennessee's in a rebuild, and the rest are CPU teams. The team to keep an eye on knocking people off is Vanderbilt. But I think it's going to be Georgia versus Auburn, and then that would just be a really good title game. But I think Georgia, Louisiana Monroe, and Auburn all make it to the playoffs this year. And I think we've talked about all those games already. The Sun Belt, or the Fun Belt as we call it, is Louisiana Lafayette is Invisible Witness. Coastal is Shark. App State is my team, and Georgia State is Stuart. Those are going to be the four teams that compete for the title. I think Louisiana Lafayette and Coastal Carolina have a better team than the other teams. Keep an eye on Georgia State. They are really the dark horse. So I think it'll be Louisiana Lafayette versus Coastal Carolina. I think both teams, minus some late season shenanigans, will make the playoffs. So that's kind of the lay of the land. I do want to focus a little bit on two teams real quick. One is Auburn. Um, I do think that Auburn had a really good offseason. Um, and I like Invisible. Wynn is one of my favorite players. I think that he's he's one of those quiet players who doesn't get enough recognition. But what Invisible was able to do was improve his wide receiver core, which I think is going to open up options. Moya is a guy to keep an eye on. He was at Louisiana Monroe last season, transfer to Auburn. I like Auburn. Really, the key for Auburn this season is going to be how well their defense plays. And I think if he gets a pretty good defense, they should be good. By the way, I'm logged in as Buffalo, so that's why you see Stephen Ingle. Um, the other team to keep an eye on this season is Michigan. Um, I know that for a long time Maryland has frustrated Michigan to no end. I think that this one of the reasons why I think Michigan gets by Maryland this year is they have some good quarterback options. Michigan is one of the teams that has really good running backs every season, because that's a priority of Stewart's. They have a decent wide receiver core. This is one of the first years where I think they can say that with reliability. And they traditionally have a pretty good defense. The main challenge that I think that they're going to run into is in the linebacker core. Uh, if in order to stop Maryland, you have to have good linebackers, as well as a good defensive line, and that's why Maryland traditionally has won this conference, is because they have a power running game. But as you can see, he's got a good defensive line for the most part. That's one of the reasons why I like them. The other one to take a look at real quick is Rutgers. So this is Kevin's team. I generally like what Kevin's done here, so I'm a big fan of it. So I know I probably jinx him every year, but I do like Ox as a quarterback. I think he's going to have a pretty special season. As you can see, is he has good running backs as well. The key here will be his offensive line. Can he keep him healthy? I think generally speaking, one of the things that's kind of held Kevin back a little bit has been that offensive line, and a lot of it has to do with the depth. But as you can see, he's got a really good wide receiver core. He plays really good defense most of the time. And then the last team to just take a quick look at is Georgia. Um, just because I think Georgia's set up for a pretty special season as well. As you can see, Shark has some pretty good options at quarterback. Nothing really spectacular, but he does run the ball extremely well. Um, it'll be interesting to see who gets the start. Tisdale is someone who's gotten starts in the past, or I think he has, yeah. But I know Tisdale is kind of the break Shark's heart at different points. He has a good running back core. His line is pretty solid. He's got good options at the receiving core, and then he has a good defense. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. If you're interested in the league, the links are in the video. We'd love to have you. Week 1 runs tomorrow night at 8. It should be a fun season. I'm looking forward to it. And that's it for now. Have a great night.